actually here!
We found it. Now the real work begins.
Look at that rust!
The first step is always the most satisfying, washing away decades of grime to see what's underneath.
Just gotta put some muscle into it. Yeah. Hear that crack? We are in business.
And there it is, the rear brake disc is finally off. That took some serious effort, but look at the corrosion underneath.
All right, getting these rear calipers tagged up, crucial to keep everything organized, especially with the Batmobile parts. These are from phase 2 disassembly.
Just a bit more scrubbing here. It's amazing what a wire brush and some elbow grease can do. Look at that contrast. And finally, the rear suspension is free.
That took a lot more effort than expected, but we got it off the chassis.
Got the last bolt off.
Okay, easy now. Bringing the cart down.
We'll label this as the exhaust assembly and set it aside here on the pallet. It's heavier than it looks.
Look at the difference already. We're finally getting through the corrosion on these drive shaft bolts.
These haven't moved in decades. Okay, perfect. One down. Now for the next one.
Step by step, we're bringing this legend back to life. These seats are rough, but they're finally out and tagged. Decades underwater really took its toll, but we can fix this.
All right, guys, we finally got the console separated. You can see where the clip snapped. We're definitely going to need to address this wiring loom. There we go. Finally managed to break that seal. That is one heavy piece of metal. All right, the first step is getting these fuel tank straps off. These bolts are completely seized, so we're hitting it with the impact gun.
All right, that is finally out of there.
Wow, look at the corrosion on this side. Piece by piece, the Batmobile lives again. Securing the fuel tank means we're one step closer to getting her running.
Okay, twisting it free now. And there we go. Wow, that is some nasty coolant. The engine harness was fused with decades of grime. Taking the time to unplug each sensor sequentially is crucial before we can finally pull the motor. All right, the hoist is in position. Now we just need to secure these chains to the engine mounts and we can start lifting this beast out of here.
And that should be it, fully clear. Perfect. What a relief to finally have it out.
That went smoother than expected.
One step closer to firing her up.
All right, the bench is ready. Let's get that gearbox mounted. And that is perfectly balanced. Now we can finally start the teardown process. All right, the extraction is complete. Now for the teardown.
Let's see what we're working with inside this gearbox.
This is the cylinder head. Well, I'm just labeling these caps now. F here, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4, so we don't mix them up when they come off. Look at that corrosion. Decades underwater really took their toll. But we got the first one out. We're checking the lift here, and unfortunately, as expected, these lobes are completely wiped out. Look at the pitting under this grease. All right, making sure we mark these caps 1 and 2 so they go back in the correct orientation. All right, let's get these main caps off. This first one is always the tightest. Using the bore scope, we can see the extent of the corrosion. These cylinder walls are heavily pitted and scored, confirming the engine is seized. Listen to that crack. That's the sound of 30 years of rust finally letting go. We're making progress now. This gearbox holds the key to getting the Batmobile running again. It looks daunting, but we're organized and ready to tackle this teardown.
That took some leverage, but we finally got the drain plug out. Look at the state of this fluid. Look at the state of that. That is some seriously thick, degraded gear oil. It's almost like syrup.
All right, let's get this main shaft out of here. Look at all that corrosion. Now for the satisfying part, cleaning up this mess. All right, slowly but surely we've got the input shaft out. Look at the condition of those gears. Step 5 of the teardown is complete.
It's strangely satisfying seeing it all laid out like this. The rust goes deep, but the structure seems okay here.
Check that inner tooth though. That looks like a stress fracture. This bearing is completely toast. We're gonna need a full replacement kit. All right, let's check these shift forks. We're looking for any signs of bending or excessive wear on the pads. This one looks pretty rough. All right, let's check the clearance on the synchronizer. We need to make sure it's within spec before we reassemble. Looks like we're sitting right at 5 thousandths here.
We have to make sure all the water and cleaning chemicals are completely flushed out of these internal passages. This is the cleanest teardown we've ever done.
Absolutely, we're in a great spot for the rebuild.
Now that the block is clean, we can start taking our measurements, making sure the micrometers are perfectly calibrated first. All right, the moment of truth. Let's see how bad this crankshaft really is. We need precise measurements to determine if we can save it.
Look at this section, it's completely rusted through.
But the main structural points here are still good. They pass the caliper test. We can work with that. That rear strut is completely rusted out. It has to be replaced.
Agreed. But look at this intake manifold. The ultrasonic cleaner worked wonders.
This is where she comes back to life. It's painstaking work, but the heart of the Batmobile deserves nothing less than perfection.
Listen to that click. That means the engine is one step closer to roaring again.
Using the piston ring compressor and a soft mallet to gently tap it in, then we torque the rod cap bolts to the factory specifications. Maybe take- Using the installation tool, apply firm, even pressure until you feel it click into place. Perfect. All right, easy now. Get this assembly loop spread evenly.
Looks perfect, honey. It spins freely.
Yeah, satisfying, right? Let's get the cap fork down. There it is, right on the
Let's
line.
focus it.
Perfect fit. That felt solid. We're using the torque wrench now to make sure these head bolts are exactly the spec. That's the first one down. We're lining up the timing chain now. You have to be meticulous here, making sure the alignment marks on the chain and sprockets match up exactly before we lock it down. All right, the oil pump is seated. Now we just drop these bolts down to the factory spec. Hear that click? That's exactly 20 foot-pounds. All right, the oil pan is on. Now we torque these down in a precise cross pattern, ensuring a perfect seal before we move on. We need to make sure these valve cover bolts are torqued down evenly, following the correct sequence to prevent any leaks. With the engine rebuilt, we're carefully fitting the accessory mounts. A satisfying click from the torque wrench means these are perfectly aligned and ready for the next stage. Phase 8 is complete. The long block is fully assembled and ready for installation. Making sure the bearings are perfectly aligned before we tap it into place. The key to a smooth transmission is precise alignment. Here we see this electric rail sliding effortlessly into the newly installed shift works. Listen to that. Smooth engagement in every gear. This gearbox is finally ready for the Batmobile. And that's the first click. Moving to the opposite side now to keep the pressure even across the casing. Once the disc is centered with the alignment tool, we can bring up the pressure plate. Then it's just a matter of torquing these bolts down in a star pattern. And with the impact wrench, we'll secure the bell housing bolts, connecting the gearbox to the block. We upgraded the fuel injection system here. It should handle the afterburner with no problem.
It looks incredible. All that hard work paid off. We need to make sure we get this entire section in.
What about the seams over here?
Yeah, mark that one too.
This is the satisfying part, seeing the original Batmobile underneath all this decay. Passing off the cockpit here, we need these lines absolutely perfect before the gloss goes down. The gloss on this is incredible. The metallic orientation is absolutely perfect. This is exactly what we wanted for the final finish. This is always the best part of the paint job. Look how sharp that line is. It's finally coming together.
Look at that gloss. It's perfect. I can't believe we finally got here. It looks amazing. We did it. It's finally together.
I can't believe it. It looks incredible. After all that work, getting the wheels mounted is a huge milestone. She really looks like the Batmobile again. With the brake lines routed, it's time to mount the calipers. Hearing that impact wrench really is satisfying.
All right, that's seated.
It looks incredible, doesn't it? And that is the main harness connected to the firewall, nice and secure. aligning the splines here, making sure it's perfectly centered before we torque it down. This is the moment it truly becomes the Batmobile again. Oil pressure stable, coolant's coming up nicely. She's running perfectly, not a single leak underneath.
Bidding at 900,950, looking for the million now, at the million, going once, going twice, I'm sold for $1 million.